Widow inherited only old walls. But what she found hidden in the cracks changed her life. Emily Carter held the black umbrella tightly as the fine March rain dampened the ancient stones of the property that was now hers. At 28, she found herself completely alone in the world. Accompanied only by Duke and Bella, her two faithful four-legged companions who watched her with worried eyes. The two worn leather suitcases beside her contained all that remained of her previous life, a life that had completely crumbled when David left 3 months ago, leaving her with debts that seemed impossible to pay off. The inheritance she had received from her husband was exactly this: ancient stone walls, broken roof tiles, window frames without glass, and land that more resembled a battlefield against time. The colonial house in Williamsburg, in the countryside of Virginia, was so deteriorated that David's own family laughed when they learned she had decided to stay. "That isn't even worth what he owed the bank," her mother-in-law had said scornfully. "You'd better disappear from our sight and let the dead rest in peace." But Emily had something her husband's family never imagined she possessed: a fierce determination she had inherited from her paternal grandmother, a woman who raised 5 children alone during World War II. As she walked through the empty rooms, her footsteps echoed on the cold stone floors, creating a melancholy symphony that mixed with the sound of rain on the leaky roof. Duke and Bella followed her closely, as if they understood that this place would be the new home for the small family they had formed. The first night in the house was a test of endurance. Emily improvised a bed in the only room that still had an intact ceiling, using clothes from the suitcases as extra blankets. The cold crept in through the cracks in the walls, and she could hear small animals moving in the attic. Bella, the younger dog, trembled all night, while Duke, more experienced and brave, stood guard at the door like a faithful soldier. During the first weeks, Emily developed a routine that always began before sunrise. She cleaned 1 room per day, removing decades of dust and spider webs that seemed to have created a city of their own among the wooden beams. Each wall told a story through the stains of moisture, the holes left by old nails, and the marks of furniture that once gave life to those spaces. It was during the cleaning of the kitchen, on a particularly sunny morning, that her life began to take a completely unexpected turn. Emily was trying to remove a dark stain from the wall when she noticed that one of the stones was slightly loose. Curious, she pressed the stone harder and felt there was an empty space behind it. With the help of an old knife she found in a drawer, she managed to completely remove the stone, revealing a small hidden niche in the wall. Inside the niche was an envelope yellowed with time, sealed with red wax that still bore the imprint of an old coat of arms. Emily's hands trembled slightly as she broke the seal, revealing a handwritten letter in elegant feminine script. The date at the top of the page confused her. It was written only 2 weeks before David's departure. "My dearest love," the letter began, "I know our situation is becoming increasingly difficult to sustain, but I need you to understand that I can no longer live this lie. I love you as I have always loved you, since that first day in your mother's shop, but I can no longer accept being just your second choice. When you married that girl from New York, I thought I could resign myself to it, but each passing day becomes more painful." Emily had to sit on the cold stone floor to continue reading. Her eyes scanned the words with a mixture of shock and morbid curiosity. The letter continued revealing intimate details of a relationship that clearly had lasted years, describing secret meetings, unfulfilled promises, and a passion that had survived David's official marriage. "You promised me you would tell her the truth after your first year of marriage, but 3 years have passed and nothing has changed. I understand your family and financial difficulties, but I can no longer be just your secret lover. I need a definitive answer by the end of this month, or I will have to make a decision that I know will hurt us both." The letter was signed simply as "Your Eternal Rachel," followed by a P.S. "I left something special in the place where we always left our notes. I hope you find it before it's too late." Emily reread the letter 3 times before her mind could fully process what she had discovered. David had maintained a parallel relationship throughout their entire marriage. The work trips he frequently took to nearby towns, the mysterious phone calls he received and answered away from her, the sudden mood swings he could never adequately explain. Everything began to make sense in a painful and clear way. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. The discovery of the letter awakened in Emily an obsessive need to understand who the man she had lived with for 3 years really was. She spent the following days examining every inch of the house with detective-like meticulousness, searching for more clues about David's secret life. Her hands explored every crack, every loose floorboard, every brick that seemed different from the others. It was behind a built-in cabinet in the main room that she found the second discovery that would change her perspective forever. A small wooden box was hidden in a space between the wall and the furniture, protected by a cloth that must have once been white, but was now yellowed with age. Inside the box, Emily found photographs showing David embracing a brunette woman of about 40, both smiling with an intimacy she had never witnessed in person. The photographs depicted intimate moments, picnics in flower-filled fields, lunches at restaurants David claimed to know only in passing, walks hand in hand in historic towns he said he had never visited. In one of the images, the woman wore a ring that Emily recognized immediately. It was the engagement ring David had given her, only the photo was clearly dated 1 year before the marriage proposal. Along with the photographs were small handwritten notes, all signed by the mysterious Rachel. The notes revealed a routine of meetings that happened religiously on Tuesdays, always at the same location described as our special spot near the old chapel. Emily knew the geography of Williamsburg well, and immediately knew it referred to the small abandoned chapel about a 2-hour walk from the house. The discovery of the photographs brought a contradictory mix of anger and relief. On one hand, she felt completely betrayed and humiliated to discover that her marriage had been an elaborate farce. On the other hand, she finally understood why she had always felt that David kept a part of himself guarded, inaccessible, even in their most intimate moments together. Duke and Bella seemed to sense the change in their owner's emotional state. They followed her more closely during her investigations around the house, occasionally sniffing corners she hadn't yet explored, as if they were helping in the search for answers. Bella had developed the habit of licking Emily's hands whenever she saw her crying, while Duke stood guard at the door, as if wanting to protect her from any additional pain that might be approaching. Determined to find the place where we always left our messages, mentioned in the letter, Emily decided to explore the surroundings of the property more carefully. The house sat on a natural rise in the land, surrounded by old stone walls that enclosed approximately 2 hectares. During her investigative walks, she noticed there was a small structure at the back of the property, almost hidden by overgrown vegetation. The small structure turned out to be a sort of abandoned storage shed or workshop, with stone walls similar to the main house and a wooden door locked with a rusty padlock. Emily tried to force the padlock with tools she found scattered around the grounds, but the lock resisted all attempts. Frustrated but not defeated, she decided to look for the key or find another way in. It was during the search for a way to open the shed that Emily had her first unexpected encounter. A lady of about 60 appeared walking along the dirt road that passed in front of the property. The woman stopped upon seeing Emily and waved with a warm smile, approaching the stone fence that separated the house from the road. "You must be David's widow," said the lady with a thick Virginian accent. "My name is Mrs. Dorothy. I live in the blue house just up ahead. I came to welcome you and see if you need anything." Emily was touched by the unexpected kindness. In recent months, she had grown accustomed to the coldness and even hostility of people, especially from David's family. The genuine simplicity of Mrs. Dorothy was like a balm to her wounded soul. "Thank you so much for visiting, Mrs. Dorothy. I'm fine trying to get the house in order. It's a lot of work, but I'm managing little by little." Mrs. Dorothy observed the property with experienced eyes. "This house has history, dear. I've lived around here for over 30 years, and I've seen a lot happen on this property. Your husband was a man, how can I put it? Complicated." The hesitant way Mrs. Dorothy spoke about David immediately piqued Emily's curiosity. She invited the lady for coffee in the kitchen, which was already reasonably clean and functional. While preparing the drink in an enamel coffee pot that had survived the years of neglect, Emily tried to find out more about what the neighbor knew. Complicated how, Mrs. Dorothy? Did he come here to the house often? The older woman hesitated before answering, clearly weighing how much she should reveal. Look, dear, I don't like to speak ill of the departed, but your husband, he had some strange habits. He always came here with someone, but never the same person, and always at odd hours, especially in the middle of the night. Emily nearly dropped her coffee cup upon hearing this revelation. In the middle of the night? But he told me he only came here to check on the house and do small repairs. Repairs at midnight? Mrs. Dorothy shook her head with an expression of someone who knew more than she was willing to share. Dear, I'm not one to meddle in other people's lives, but sometimes I saw lights on in that back building until very late, and there was movement of strange cars, always different cars. This information ignited a new suspicion in Emily's mind. If David was keeping activities on the property in the middle of the night, it meant there were many more secrets hidden than she had imagined. The structure in the back, which she had assumed was just an abandoned storage shed, apparently played a much more significant role in her husband's secret life. Mrs. Dorothy, do you happen to know anything about this structure in the back? I'm trying to open it, but it's locked. The elderly neighbor became visibly uncomfortable with the question. That place has always been locked, even when David's father was alive. The family never liked neighbors asking questions about that structure. But if you're the property owner now, I suppose you have the right to know what's inside. After Mrs. Dorothy's departure, Emily became even more determined to discover the secrets of the mysterious structure. She spent the rest of the day searching for keys in every possible place in the main house. Drawers, forgotten boxes, even inside old jars in the pantry. It was in a small cookie tin hidden on top of a kitchen cabinet that she finally found a set of old keys. The third key on the ring opened the padlock on the shed with a satisfying click that echoed in the afternoon silence. Emily pushed the heavy door, which creaked as if protesting years of isolation. The interior of the structure was plunged into darkness, with only a few rays of sunlight filtering through small windows covered in cobwebs. When her eyes adjusted to the gloom, Emily was faced with something she had never imagined finding. The structure was not a simple storage shed, but rather a kind of meticulously organized secret office. There was an old wooden desk, chairs, metal filing cabinets, and, most surprisingly, the walls were covered with papers, photographs, and maps pinned with thumbtacks. In the center of the desk was a carefully organized stack of letters tied with red ribbon. Emily immediately recognized the elegant feminine handwriting from the letter she had found in the kitchen wall. There were dozens of letters, all signed by Rachel, and dated over 15 years, a period that began long before Emily's marriage to David, and extended until just a few weeks before his departure. The letters told the story of an intense and lasting relationship, full of unfulfilled promises and constantly frustrated expectations. Rachel had met David when he was only 19, and the relationship had evolved from a teenage passion to a deep bond that survived all the changes in their lives. She had waited for years for him to leave his family and publicly acknowledge the relationship, but that had never happened. Emily read letter after letter, each revealing new aspects of David's personality that she had never known. With Rachel, he was romantic, vulnerable, full of dreams and ambitions he had never shared at home. The letters revealed elaborate plans for a life together, including the renovation of the very house where Emily now lived, which was to become the couple's official home after the inevitable divorce. One of the most recent letters revealed information that left Emily completely shocked. My love, I know it's been hard pretending to be happy at home, but you need to be patient. As we agreed, you married her only to appease your family and gain access to the money we needed for our plans. Soon you can ask for a divorce, and we will finally live our truth. The revelation that her marriage had been planned as a temporary financial maneuver hit Emily like a punch to the stomach. She remembered how David had insisted she put her savings into a joint account right after the wedding, claiming it would be more practical for managing household expenses. The money had gradually disappeared over the 3 years, always with plausible explanations about necessary investments or unforeseen emergencies. On the walls of the secret office, Emily found a veritable mural dedicated to the relationship between David and Rachel. There were photographs of the two from different times, maps of places they had visited together, newspaper clippings from events they had attended as an official couple, always in cities where Emily had never been. One of the maps showed a detailed itinerary for a 3-week trip through Europe, dated exactly during the period when David had said he was taking a specialization course in New York. What impressed Emily the most was the meticulous organization of all that material. David had documented 15 years of a parallel life with the care of a professional archivist. Each letter was dated and filed in chronological order. Each photograph had an explanatory caption on the back. Each newspaper clipping was accompanied by detailed notes about the occasion. Among the filed documents, Emily found something that would completely change her understanding of the financial situation she had inherited. In a folder marked Future Plans, there was a series of documents related to investments and properties she was unaware existed. Over the years, David had acquired 3 apartments in different cities, 2 bank accounts under alternate names, and even shares in companies that generated substantial monthly dividends. The documents revealed that David was not in financial difficulty, as he had constantly claimed during the marriage. In fact, he had built up considerable assets that he kept hidden, apparently intended for the life he planned to build with Rachel after ridding himself of the family obligations, a term he consistently used in the documents to refer to his marriage to Emily. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we are just starting out. Now continuing, the discovery of the financial documents brought a new dimension of anger and determination to Emily. She was not just a betrayed wife, but also a victim of elaborate fraud. The man who had cried in front of her claiming financial difficulties, who had borrowed money for family medical emergencies, who had insisted she work overtime to help with household expenses, in fact, possessed sufficient resources to sustain 2 comfortable lives. That night, alone in the dimly lit house, Emily made a decision that would change the course of her life. She would no longer be the pathetic widow who inherited only old walls. With the information she had discovered, she had the means to rebuild her life independently and with dignity. But first, she needed to fully understand the extent of the secrets David had kept. In the following days, Emily worked like a professional investigator, cataloging every document, every letter, every photograph she found in the secret office. She created her own organizational system that allowed her to trace a complete timeline of David's parallel life. What emerged from this meticulous investigation was a portrait of a man who had lived 2 completely distinct lives for 15 years, maintaining both with frightening competence. With Rachel, David was the romantic and ambitious man he had always dreamed of being. He planned elaborate trips, wrote poetry, showed genuine interest in the arts and literature. The documents revealed that he had even learned Italian to communicate better during the European trips he took with Rachel, while claiming at home he was taking business management courses. With Emily, he had played the role of the responsible but unambitious husband, always too tired for romantic activities, always too worried about money to invest in pleasurable experiences. She remembered all the times she had suggested small trips or special activities, only to hear that it wasn't the right time, or that they needed to save. The analysis of the financial documents revealed the impressive extent of David's duplicity. He had created a complex network of bank accounts, shell companies, and investments that allowed him to systematically divert money from the family finances without leaving obvious traces. The constant emergencies that always arose to drain the household finances were, in fact, calculated transfers to fund the luxurious life he led with Rachel. One of the most painful discoveries was a series of receipts for expensive gifts David had bought for Rachel during the marriage years: jewelry, designer clothes, electronics, even a car, all purchased with money he claimed not to have when Emily asked to renew basic appliances or make necessary repairs to the house they lived in. But it was in a folder marked Contingency that Emily found the most shocking information of all. David had drawn up a detailed plan to simulate extreme financial difficulties that would force him to sell the Williamsburg house to Rachel for a symbolic amount. The plan included falsifying debt documents, creating a family medical emergency situation requiring immediate resources, and finally, presenting the sale of the property as the only possible solution. The plan was scheduled to be executed the month after his departure, which meant Emily would be evicted from the house just a few months after being widowed, without suspecting that everything had been orchestrated years before. The folder even contained drafts of legal documents already prepared, with blank spaces to fill in the specific dates when the plan would be implemented. The discovery of this elaborate eviction plan awakened in Emily a cold, calculating fury she didn't know she possessed. David had planned not only to betray her throughout the marriage, but also to leave her completely helpless after his departure. The image of the dedicated but incompetent husband was replaced by the reality of a seasoned manipulator who had orchestrated every aspect of their lives to serve his own interests. During this phase of intense discoveries, Duke and Bella became her only confidants. Emily would talk to them about each new revelation, as if they were capable of understanding the complexity of the situation. In a way, they seemed to understand. Duke had developed a habit of growling softly whenever Emily mentioned David's name, while Bella would come closer to offer physical comfort whenever Emily's voice became laden with emotion. Emily's daily routine had completely transformed. She would wake before dawn, walk to the secret office with a cup of coffee, and spend hours analyzing documents, taking notes, and planning her next steps. The main house had become just a place to sleep and have basic meals, while her real life happened in the small building in the backyard. It was during one of these investigative mornings that Emily made a discovery that would change everything once again. In a locked drawer of the office desk, which she had managed to open with one of the smaller keys on the ring, she found an appointment book that David had kept updated until just a few days before his departure. The book revealed that he had scheduled a meeting with Rachel for exactly 1 week after his departure. The appointment was marked as Final Conversation, Decision about the House, followed by an address in Williamsburg that Emily recognized as being the most expensive inn in town. The date and time were circled in red, with a side note that said, "Finally free forever." The discovery of the scheduled meeting brought a new urgency to Emily's investigations. If Rachel had attended the meeting, she should have realized that something had happened to David. But if she hadn't attended, or if she had attended and discovered the situation, where would she be now? And more importantly, what did she know about the plans David had drawn up for the property? Emily decided it was time to step out of the passive investigator role and take a more proactive stance. She needed to find Rachel and confront her directly with everything she had discovered. But before that, she needed to make sure she was legally protected. The documents she found suggested that David had tried to transfer properties to fictitious names, and she needed to understand if these maneuvers affected her rights as a widow. With this determination, Emily visited the local notary's office to check the legal status of the property. To her surprise, she discovered that the house was registered under the name of a company she had never heard of, Rachel and David Enterprises LLC. The registration had been made 2 years prior, during a period when David had claimed to be constantly traveling for work. The notary clerk, an efficient lady named Mrs. Barbara, explained that family companies were common in the region, especially for rural properties. Couples often do this to make inheritance and tax matters easier, she explained. But it's strange that you didn't know about the company's existence, being the wife of one of the partners. Emily requested a complete copy of all documents related to the company. The papers revealed that Rachel and David Enterprises had been created with substantial initial capital, including not only the Williamsburg property, but also the apartments she had discovered in the secret office. Rachel appeared as the majority partner with 60% of the shares, while David held the remaining 40%. The discovery that Rachel had majority control of the company that owned the house where Emily now lived brought a new dimension of vulnerability to her situation. Technically, she was living in a property that did not legally belong to her, but she also realized she had been the victim of an elaborate fraud and that she should have legal rights that needed to be explored. Determined to fully understand her legal situation before making any misstep, Emily sought out a lawyer in Charlottesville, the nearest town that had established law offices. Dr. Robert Harrison, a 50-year-old man specializing in family and inheritance law, listened to her story with growing attention. "Mrs. Emily, "What you are describing to me constitutes several crimes," said Dr. Robert, after analyzing the documents she had brought. "Embezzlement, document forgery, marital fraud, tax evasion. Your late husband built a veritable criminal enterprise." The lawyer explained that, although the situation was legally complex, Emily had solid rights as a deceived spouse. "Creating the company without your knowledge or consent, using assets acquired during the marriage, is completely illegal. We have a legal basis to annul all these dealings and recover the assets that were diverted." Dr. Robert also warned that the process would be complicated because it would involve a third person, Rachel, who might claim good faith or even that she was unaware of David's marital status. "We need to understand exactly what level of knowledge this woman had about her husband's marital situation. Depending on what we discover, she could be an accomplice or just another victim." With legal support secured, Emily felt more confident to take the next step, finding and confronting Rachel. Using the information from the letters and the secret office documents, she had identified several locations where Rachel might be found. The most consistent address was an artisan shop in the historic center of Williamsburg, mentioned several times in the correspondence as her creative refuge. The shop, Earth Arts, was located on one of the cobblestone streets of the historic center, occupying the ground floor of a light yellow colonial house. Emily spent 2 afternoons observing the shop's activity from a cafe across the street, trying to identify Rachel among the employees. On the 3rd afternoon, she immediately recognized the woman from the photographs. Brunette, elegant, approximately 40 years old, with a bearing that demonstrated confidence and sophistication. Rachel was serving customers naturally, showing deep knowledge about the artisan pieces she sold. She laughed easily, gestured while explaining the production techniques of the pieces, and clearly maintained personal relationships with several regular customers. Watching her interact with others brought an unexpected humanization for Emily, who had built a demonic image of the rival based solely on the passionate letters. Emily waited until the end of the day, when the shop was preparing to close, to approach. She entered casually, pretending interest in the displayed pieces while observing Rachel up close. The older woman had an expressive and intelligent face, with expression lines that suggested someone who smiled often. Her hands were delicate, but showed the calluses of someone who worked with crafts, and she wore several silver bracelets that tinkled softly when she moved. "Can I help you with something?" asked Rachel with a genuine smile, noticing Emily's prolonged interest in the pieces. Emily hesitated for a moment, feeling her heart race. "Actually, I would like to talk to you about David Carter." The change in Rachel's expression was instant and dramatic. Her face paled, her hands trembled slightly, and she had to lean on the shop counter. You're her, aren't you? His wife?" The confirmation that Rachel knew about the existence of the marriage brought an unexpected relief to Emily. At least, she wouldn't need to start the conversation by explaining who she was. "I'm Emily, and we need to talk." Rachel looked around nervously, as if fearing someone might overhear the conversation. "Not here. Let's go to my house. It's more private." Rachel's house was a few blocks from the shop, on a quiet street lined with well-preserved colonial houses. It was a smaller but impeccably maintained building, with a flower garden and decorative details that revealed the owner's good taste. The interior of the house reflected Rachel's artistic personality. Colorful walls, restored antique furniture, plants in every corner, and several artisan pieces that had clearly been made by her herself. "Would you like some coffee? Or do you prefer tea?" asked Rachel, clearly trying to delay the start of the difficult conversation they both knew they needed to have. "Coffee, thank you." Emily settled into a comfortable armchair, observing the family portraits scattered around the room. In several photographs she recognized David, always smiling with the ease of someone who was at home. "How long have you two—" 15 years, Rachel answered without hesitation. "We met when he was 19. I was separated from my first husband, trying to rebuild my life. He was young, full of dreams, completely different from any man I had ever known." Rachel poured the coffee into delicate porcelain cups, her hands now steadier. I know you must hate me, but I need you to understand. To me, you were the lie. He told me from the beginning that his marriage to you had been arranged by his family for financial reasons, that you lived more like siblings than a couple. Emily felt a renewed anger upon hearing this distorted version of her reality. Financial reasons? He told me he was always struggling for money. I worked overtime to help with the household expenses. The confusion on Rachel's face was genuine. That can't be right. David always had abundant resources. He paid all the shop's expenses, took me on expensive trips, bought gifts I sometimes thought were excessive. The two women looked at each other in silence, each processing the contradictions between their versions of the same story. Emily realized that Rachel had also been manipulated, just in a different way. While she had been kept in the dark through artificial scarcity, Rachel had been controlled through conditioned abundance. Rachel, I need to show you some things I found at the house in Williamsburg. Things that will completely change what you think about David and this whole situation. For the next 2 hours, Emily shared everything she had discovered. The archived letters, the financial documents, the eviction plans, the fictitious company, the secret apartments. Rachel listened to each revelation with growing shock, occasionally interrupting to ask for clarification or to question details that didn't align with her own experience. He told me he was planning to file for divorce early this year, Rachel said with a trembling voice. He said he had finally found a way to get rid of his family obligations without causing a scandal. I thought he was talking about pressures from his family. Emily showed the documents for the scheduled eviction plan. He wasn't planning a normal divorce. He was going to fake a bankruptcy, evict me from the house, and transfer everything to you through the company. I would be left with nothing, while you would get all the assets we built during the marriage. The realization that she had been an unwilling accomplice in an elaborate fraud devastated Rachel. She cried openly, between apologies and statements that she would never have knowingly participated in something that harmed another woman. I thought he was being honest with me. After 15 years together, I believed everything he told me. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The meeting between the two women lasted until nightfall, with both sharing their experiences and gradually realizing they had been victims of the same manipulative man. Rachel revealed details about David's personality that Emily had never witnessed. His obsession with control, his ability to adapt his personality to his audience, his tendency to create elaborate stories to justify any questionable behavior. He had an impressive memory for the lies he told, Rachel said. He never contradicted himself, never forgot the details of the stories he had invented. It was as if he lived multiple realities at once, and each one was completely convincing. Emily agreed, remembering how David always had plausible answers for her questions, always managed to explain discrepancies in his stories with additional details that seemed to confirm their truthfulness. He was a talented liar. So talented that even I doubted my own suspicions. During the conversation, it also became clear that David had used the same technique with both, creating artificial problems that required their help, making them feel needed and important for his happiness. With Emily, he created financial emergencies that required her resources and extra work. With Rachel, he created emotional dramas about the oppressive family that required her patience and unconditional support. Rachel prepared a simple dinner, and the two women continued talking while they ate. The initial hostility had transformed into an unexpected camaraderie, based on the shared experience of having been deceived by the same man. Both recognized they had been manipulated in different ways, but equally harmful ones. "What are we going to do now?" asked Rachel when they finished eating. "Technically, I own properties that were bought with money that wasn't just his, and you have legal rights that have been violated for years." Emily had already thought about this issue during the last few weeks. First, we need to understand exactly what the current legal situation is. My lawyer said we can void all deals made without my consent, but that would include the company you created together. Rachel sighed deeply. The store where I work is rented with money from that company. If the company is dissolved, I'll lose my livelihood, but I understand you have a right to a part of all this. The conversation about practical aspects revealed the situation was even more complex than either had imagined. Rachel had invested not only emotionally, but also professionally in the life David had built for her. The artisan store was her main source of income, and she had used her experience and contacts to make it successful over the years. Rachel, I don't want to destroy your life. You were deceived as much as I was. But I need you to understand that I was also wronged for years. My money was used to fund your life while I lived under artificial restrictions. Rachel nodded understandingly. I understand perfectly, and I want to do what's right. Maybe we can find a solution that's fair to both of us. The two women decided it would be necessary to make a complete inventory of all assets involved before making any definitive decision. Rachel offered to accompany Emily in investigating the apartments David had acquired in other cities, since she had the keys and knew the location of all of them. The next day, they traveled together to Philadelphia, where David maintained an apartment in an upscale neighborhood of the city. The property was tastefully furnished and clearly used regularly. In the drawers and cabinets, they found men's and women's clothing, photographs of the couple, and even official correspondence addressed to both David and Rachel at the same address. He told me this apartment was an investment that was part of our plans for the future, explained Rachel as they explored the rooms. Sometimes we spent weekends here. It was like our city home. For Emily, discovering that David maintained a fully equipped residence with Rachel was one more confirmation that her marriage had been just a facade. The apartment revealed a domestic intimacy she had never experienced with her husband. There were books they read together, plants Rachel cared for, even a collection of classical music records that David claimed not to appreciate when he was at home. The second apartment was in Annapolis, in a valued historic area. This one was smaller but equally well kept and equipped. On the shelves, they found photo albums documenting trips and events that Rachel and David had shared over 15 years. The images showed a relationship that had evolved and matured over time, with moments of genuine happiness that completely contrasted with the distant formality that characterized the official marriage. The third apartment was in Savannah, in a simpler but equally charming area. This one seemed to be used mainly as a weekend retreat, with rustic decor and an impressive library. In the marginal notes of the books, Emily could see the intellectual evolution of the relationship between David and Rachel, with discussions about art, philosophy, and literature that revealed a mental compatibility she had never imagined David possessed. During the exploration of the apartments, Rachel shared specific memories associated with each location. She talked about the ways David behaved differently in each environment, always adapted to the circumstances and the mood of the moment. He was like a skilled actor, she said. He could be exactly the person each situation demanded. The investigative trip also revealed positive aspects of Rachel's personality that impressed Emily. She was organized without being obsessive, intelligent without being pedantic, and demonstrated a genuine capacity for empathy, even in a situation that could justify hostility. During the meals they shared together in the different cities, Rachel talked about her life independent of the relationship with David, her passion for crafts, her work with local communities, her personal plans that existed parallel to the life she shared with him. Rachel, can I ask you a personal question? Did you never want to officially marry him or have children? Rachel became thoughtful before answering. I did, especially in the beginning. But he always said we needed to wait for the right time. First, it was his family who wouldn't approve. Then there were financial matters. Then legal problems related to the divorce. There was always a reason to postpone. Emily realized that David had used the same tactic with both of them, maintaining expectations and hopes through constant promises that never materialized. With her, he promised more financial stability, a bigger house, children when the situation was better. With Rachel, he promised official marriage, public recognition, a life without secrets as soon as he resolved the current situation. On the way back to Williamsburg, the two women had the most frank conversation they had shared up to that point. Rachel admitted that she had always felt something strange about David's reluctance to make their relationship public, but had attributed it to the family complexities he constantly mentioned. There were times I thought about looking for you, confessed Rachel, especially in the last 2 years, when he started getting more nervous and evasive. But he always said you already knew everything and had agreed to keep up appearances for family reasons. Emily was shocked to discover that David had claimed she was aware of and approved of the extramarital relationship. He said, "I knew that I had agreed." He said you had talked and reached a mutual agreement of convenience, that you had your own interests and that your marriage was just a social formality that benefited both families. The discovery that David had lied to Rachel about her knowledge and consent brought a new dimension of outrage to Emily. He had not only maintained 2 separate lives, but had created false versions of each to justify the existence of the other. For Rachel, he had painted Emily as a conscious accomplice. For Emily, he had simply denied Rachel's existence. Back in Williamsburg, the 2 women decided they needed time to process everything they had discovered before making definitive decisions about the legal and practical aspects of the situation. Rachel offered to stay a few days at the house on the property, helping Emily continue the investigation and organize all the documents they had found. Rachel's presence in the house brought a completely new dynamic to the environment. She had practical experience with renovations and decoration and immediately began suggesting improvements that could make the property more livable. At the same time, her presence brought back vivid memories of the moments she had shared with David in those same spaces. "This room was where he said would one day be our bedroom," said Rachel, showing a room on the 2nd floor that Emily had assumed was just a storage area. "He had detailed plans to renovate this entire area. We spent hours planning what the decor would be like, where we would put the bed, how to take advantage of the mountain view." For Emily, hearing Rachel describe future plans that David had made for the same house where she now lived brought a painful understanding of how he had completely compartmentalized his 2 lives. The property wasn't just a family home he occasionally visited. It was the future home he planned with his mistress, decorated and renovated with money that had been diverted from his official marriage. During the joint organization of the documents, they discovered that David had kept detailed diaries of his activities in each of his lives. The diaries revealed the obsessive level of planning necessary to maintain 2 parallel existences for 15 years. He recorded appointments, lies told, gifts purchased, even details about the mood and expectations of each of the women in his life. "Look at this," said Rachel, showing a typical diary entry. "Tuesday, told E I had a late work meeting. Romantic dinner with R at the restaurant on the square. Remember to take off wedding ring before getting out of the car. R mentioned again about meeting my family. Need to invent a new problem to delay." Emily read several similar entries, each revealing the level of premeditation and manipulation David employed daily. He wasn't simply a man who had been involved in 2 simultaneous relationships. He was a calculating manipulator who had created 2 artificial realities to serve his own purposes. Duke and Bella adapted quickly to Rachel's presence in the house. She showed genuine affection for the animals, and they seemed to sense that she posed no threat to their owner. Bella especially grew fond of Rachel, who had a habit of petting the dog while reading documents or talking with Emily. "David never liked animals much," Rachel commented one afternoon, watching Duke and Bella play in the yard. "He said they were too dependent, that they required constant care that interfered with personal freedom. Now I understand why he thought that. Animals require genuine commitment." Rachel's observation about David's aversion to commitment brought a new perspective to Emily about her late husband's personality. She remembered how he had resisted the idea of having pets, citing practical reasons like cost and extra work. In truth, David had rejected any responsibility that could interfere with his freedom to maintain 2 separate lives. During the 3rd week of living together, Emily and Rachel developed a surprisingly harmonious domestic routine. Rachel would cook breakfast, while Emily took care of the animals. They worked together, organizing documents throughout the morning, took breaks for simple lunches and conversations about their past lives, and spent their afternoons planning possible solutions for their shared situation. It was during one of these conversations that Rachel revealed an aspect of her personality that Emily had not initially perceived. She had a practical intelligence and a problem-solving ability that had been fundamental to the success of the artisan shop. Rachel had transformed a personal hobby into a profitable business, establishing networks of local suppliers and creating a market for quality handmade products. "I've always been independent," explained Rachel. "Even when I was with David, I maintained my own professional and financial life. The shop was my creation, although he helped with the initial investment. But all the operational decisions, all the contacts with clients and suppliers, all the commercial strategy, that was my work." The revelation that Rachel had built her own career independently of David brought a new respect from Emily for the older woman. She realized that Rachel was not simply the passive other woman who had benefited from David's manipulation. She was a competent businesswoman who had been deceived about the nature of the resources she had used to invest in her business. This perception paved the way for a conversation about possible solutions that could benefit both women rather than harm each other. Emily proposed that, instead of completely dissolving the company created by David and Rachel, they could restructure it as a legitimate partnership that recognized the rights and contributions of both. "Rachel, you built a successful shop and have business experience that I don't have. I have legal rights to resources that were diverted from my marriage. Perhaps we can find a way to work together instead of against each other." The idea of a business partnership initially seemed strange to both, considering the circumstances that had brought them together. But the more they discussed the practical possibilities, the more the proposal made sense. Emily was interested in establishing herself independently in Williamsburg, and Rachel needed capital and support to expand her artisan business. During the following weeks, they explored different partnership models that could work for both. Rachel suggested that the property in Williamsburg could be transformed into an artistic inn, combining lodging with craft workshops and sales of local products. Emily contributed ideas about how to use the apartments in other cities as sales points or small specialized studios. The joint planning revealed that both had complementary skills that could create a stronger enterprise than either could achieve individually. Rachel had commercial experience and contacts in the artisan industry, while Emily had a background in administration and a strategic perspective on business development. But before they could formalize any agreement, they needed to resolve the complicated legal situation David had left for them. Dr. Robert Harrison had made progress in investigating the documents, but had discovered additional complexities that would require careful decisions. "Ladies, technically you have the right to annul all transactions made without Mrs. Emily's knowledge," explained the lawyer during a meeting in his office. "But that would mean Mrs. Rachel would lose all the investment she made in good faith over the years. On the other hand, if you decide to keep the company, we will need to completely restructure the ownership shares to reflect the actual contributions of each." Dr. Roberts suggested that the fairest solution would be to dissolve the original company and create a new partnership that explicitly recognized the special circumstances of the situation. "You can form a partnership where Mrs. Emily recovers the value of the resources that were diverted, and Mrs. Rachel retains credit for the work and investment she put into the business. The real estate assets can be divided so that both have a proportional share." The legal proposal would create a solid foundation for the business partnership they had discussed. Emily would recover a significant portion of the resources David had diverted during the marriage, while Rachel would maintain the security of her professional and financial situation. Both would become legitimate partners in a company that reflected their actual contributions. But the decision to form an official partnership would require a level of mutual trust that was still developing between the two women. They had overcome the initial hostility and developed mutual respect, but building a lasting business relationship would be an even bigger step. "Emily, I need to be honest with you," said Rachel during a walk around the property grounds. "I'm nervous about the idea of becoming partners. Not because I don't trust you, but because I'm afraid our complicated history might interfere with business decisions in the future." Emily understood Rachel's concerns perfectly. "I'm nervous too. But look at what we've already managed to do together these past few weeks. We organized all the documentation, investigated the properties, even improved this house in a way neither of us could have done alone. If we can work well together in such an emotional and complicated situation, perhaps we can make it work commercially too." The conversation about a business partnership naturally evolved into discussions about their personal visions for the future. Rachel talked about her desire to expand the artisan work to include educational workshops and community programs. Emily shared her wish to settle permanently in Williamsburg and contribute to the cultural development of the region. You know, Rachel, for the first time since David left, I'm able to imagine a future that excites me. Not just a future where I survive the consequences of what he did, but a future I actually want to live. Rachel smiled, the first time Emily had seen her show genuine happiness since they'd met. I feel that too. For 15 years, my life revolved around the plans he made for us. Now I'm making my own plans based on what I really want. The decision to form the official partnership was made on a sunny April morning as they had coffee in the patio of the renovated house. Duke and Bella played in the gardens Rachel had helped plant, and the property was already beginning to feel like a home instead of a problematic inheritance. "Let's try," said Emily, extending her hand to Rachel. "Let's create something of our own, something that never had anything to do with David or his lies." Rachel firmly shook the offered hand. "Let's create something better than anything he could have planned for us." The formalization of the partnership through Dr. Robert Harrison took several weeks, during which Emily and Rachel worked together on developing the business plan for their new company. They decided to name the partnership Two Hands Artisan, a name that reflected both the artisanal nature of the work and the unexpected collaboration between two women who found strength in unity. During the legal process, they discovered more details about the extent of the businesses David had conducted without the knowledge of either of them. Besides the apartments and the artisan shop, he had invested in several other smaller properties and even in shares of local companies. The total estate was substantially larger than anyone had imagined. "It's impressive how he managed to hide all this," commented Emily as she examined the bank statements Dr. Robert had obtained through a court order. "He built a veritable financial empire using money from various sources, including loans he took out in my name without my knowledge." Rachel was particularly shocked to discover that some of the gifts David had given her over the years were purchased with fraudulent loans. "That car he gave me for my 40th birthday was bought with a loan he took out using your information as collateral, Emily. I drove for 2 years a car that was technically your debt." The discoveries continued to reveal the depth of David's manipulation, but they also strengthened the two women's determination to build something honest and transparent together. Each new revelation about the lies of the past motivated them even more to create a future based on mutual trust and open communication. The first official project of Two Hands Artisan was the transformation of the Williamsburg property into an artistic inn, as Rachel had originally suggested. They hired a local architect to develop a renovation plan that would preserve the historical character of the colonial building while creating functional spaces for lodging and artisan activities. During the planning of the inn, they discovered they had complementary visions about hospitality and the guest experience. Emily had a systematic and organizational approach, focusing on practical aspects like operational efficiency and financial sustainability. Rachel contributed with the artistic and cultural perspective, imagining how guests could connect with local traditions through authentic experiences. "I see the rooms not just as places to sleep, but as spaces that tell the story of the region," explained Rachel as they walked through the house planning the renovation. Each room could have a different theme, representing an aspect of the local culture. One room dedicated to Virginian Baroque, another focused on culinary traditions, another that celebrates the region's music and literature. Emily visualized the practical aspects needed to make this vision a reality. "And we need to think about how to integrate the artisan workshops with the lodging experience. Guests could participate in activities during the day and relax in their themed rooms at night. We could even offer special packages for people interested in cultural immersion." The property renovation became a collaborative project that involved several local artisans and workers. Emily and Rachel made a point of hiring professionals from the region, contributing to the local economy, and establishing relationships that would be valuable for the future business. They also insisted on using sustainable materials and traditional techniques whenever possible. Mrs. Dorothy, the neighbor who had been the first person to welcome Emily with kindness, became an unofficial consultant on local traditions and regional history. She spent entire afternoons at the property, sharing stories about the former residents and explaining customs that could be incorporated into the inn's activities. "This house has seen many families over the years," Mrs. Dorothy recounted one afternoon as she watched the renovation work. "But I've never seen so much life and positive energy as now. You two have brought something special to this place." Mrs. Dorothy's words touched the two women deeply, who were discovering that their partnership not only solved practical problems, but also created something genuinely meaningful for the local community. The inn was becoming a symbol of renewal and hope, not just for them, but for everyone following the project. During the months of renovation, Emily and Rachel developed a domestic routine that worked surprisingly well. They had transformed two of the larger rooms into temporary suites where they lived during the construction, always maintaining each one's privacy while sharing common spaces like the kitchen and living room. Duke and Bella adapted perfectly to the constant presence of workers and the bustle of the construction site. They seemed to understand that the changes were positive and were often seen supervising the work or resting in the shade of the trees Rachel had planted. Bella developed a special fondness for the oldest mason, a man named Mr. George, who always saved a piece of bread for her. "These dogs have good taste in people," observed Mr. George one morning, as Bella and Duke accompanied him checking the walls. "They know who has a good heart and who has bad intentions. If they like you two together, it's because you're doing the right thing." The simple but profound observations of the local workers often offered valuable perspectives that helped Emily and Rachel reflect on their developing partnership. They were learning that their collaboration wasn't just a practical solution to a legal problem, but a genuine friendship that had emerged from extraordinary circumstances. 3 months after the start of the construction, the inn began to take physical shape. The rooms were being finished with decoration that reflected the different cultural traditions of Virginia, according to Rachel's original vision. The kitchen had been expanded to accommodate both guest meals and the culinary workshops they planned to offer. A spacious studio had been created on the ground floor for artisan activities. It was during the final decoration of the rooms that Rachel revealed an artistic talent Emily hadn't fully perceived. She not only had good taste for buying artisan pieces, but was also an artist capable of creating original works that gave a unique personality to each space. "Rachel, you painted this mural?" asked Emily, admiring a wall in the reception that showed a landscape of the local mountains in vibrant colors. "I painted it during the nights when I couldn't sleep," Rachel replied modestly. "I've always enjoyed painting, but never had time to dedicate myself seriously. Now with our more flexible schedule and a clear purpose, I'm rediscovering passions I had set aside." The revelation of Rachel's artistic talent opened new possibilities for the inn. They decided to include a small gallery where Rachel could exhibit her own works alongside pieces from other local artists. The gallery would become not only an additional source of income, but also a cultural space that would attract visitors interested in contemporary art inspired by Virginian traditions. Emily also discovered her own talents she hadn't explored during the marriage. Her experience in administration proved perfectly suited for developing efficient operational systems for the inn. She created procedures for reservations, check-in and check-out that maximized guest satisfaction while minimizing administrative work. "I never imagined I would enjoy working in hospitality so much," Emily confessed during a work break. "During the marriage, I was so focused on surviving financially that I never had the opportunity to discover what truly gave me professional pleasure." The discovery of personal talents and interests became an important aspect of both women's growth during the period of building the inn. They were not only creating a business together, but also rediscovering their individual identities after years of living according to the expectations and limitations imposed by David. 6 months after the partnership began, the Two Hands Inn was ready to welcome its first guests. The property had been completely transformed. The rooms were cozy and unique. The studio was equipped with tools and materials for various artisanal activities. The kitchen allowed for both intimate meals and culinary events, and the gardens offered peaceful spaces for relaxation and contemplation. The official opening was planned as a community event that would celebrate not only the opening of the inn, but also the revitalization of a property that had been abandoned for years. They invited all the neighbors, local artisans, suppliers and workers who had participated in the project. Mrs. Dorothy offered to coordinate the opening buffet, gathering traditional recipes from various families in the region. Mr. George and the other workers took charge of the outdoor decoration, using native flowers and plants to create a festive atmosphere that honored the local nature. "This event isn't just about our inn," explained Rachel during the preparations. "It's about showing that this community can come together to create beautiful and meaningful things. We want everyone to feel proud of what we've built together." The opening attracted more people than they had anticipated. Entire families came to see the inn. Local artists brought their works to display. Musicians performed voluntarily in the courtyard, and even some people from neighboring towns appeared after hearing comments about the project. During the party, Emily and Rachel realized they had created something bigger than a simple business. The inn had become an informal cultural center that brought together people interested in art, tradition, and community life. The guests wouldn't just be customers, but participants in an authentic cultural experience. "Look at what we've created," said Rachel to Emily, as they watched the local children playing with Duke and Bella in the gardens, teenagers admiring the artwork in the gallery, and adults chatting animatedly about the scheduled workshops. "We've created an extended family," replied Emily, feeling an emotion she hadn't experienced in years. "We've created a place where people can connect with something real and meaningful." The first month of the inn's operation exceeded all expectations. Reservations came through word-of-mouth recommendations and a small online marketing campaign that Emily had created. The guests were mainly couples seeking authentic cultural experiences, families interested in educational activities for their children, and artists who wanted to be inspired by the creative atmosphere of the place. The craft workshops proved particularly popular. Rachel developed workshops on pottery, painting, and weaving, while guest artisans offered specialized activities in leather, wood, and metal. The guests appreciated the opportunity to learn traditional techniques in a relaxed and welcoming environment. "It's amazing how satisfied people feel when they create something with their own hands," observed Rachel after a particularly successful pottery painting workshop. "Many of our guests lead very busy lives in the big cities. Here they can slow down and connect with simpler, more rewarding aspects of life." Emily developed an evaluation system that allowed her to collect detailed feedback from guests and use this information to constantly improve the services offered. The reviews were consistently positive, with many guests praising not only the quality of the accommodations, but also the authenticity of the cultural experiences and the warmth of the hospitality. One of the first families to stay at the inn included a 70-year-old lady named Mrs. Margaret, who was accompanied by her 2 adult daughters. During the 5-day stay, Mrs. Margaret participated in all the activities offered and developed a special connection with Rachel, who spent hours teaching her embroidery techniques. "Girls, you've created something very special here," said Mrs. Margaret on the last day of her stay. "It's not just an inn. It's a place where people can rediscover passions they had forgotten. I hadn't done embroidery in 15 years, not since my husband passed away, and I thought these activities didn't matter anymore." Mrs. Margaret's words deeply touched Emily and Rachel, who began to realize that their inn was offering more than lodging and activities. It was providing opportunities for people to rediscover parts of themselves that had been neglected or forgotten. Mrs. Margaret returned home but kept in touch through letters and phone calls. She became an informal ambassador for the inn, recommending the experience to friends and acquaintances. 3 months later, she returned bringing a group of 6 friends the same age, all interested in participating in a week-long artistic retreat. "You need to understand the impact you're having on people's lives," said Mrs. Margaret during her second visit. "For women my age, especially those who have lost husbands or gone through major life changes, this place offers an opportunity to rediscover who we are beyond the roles we play for other people." Mrs. Margaret's observation inspired Emily and Rachel to develop specialized programs for different groups of people. They created specific retreats for women going through important life transitions, divorce, widowhood, retirement, empty nest syndrome. The programs combined artistic activities with group conversations and time for personal reflection. The retreats for women in transition became one of the most rewarding aspects of the inn. Emily and Rachel discovered that their own experiences of overcoming and starting over uniquely qualified them to offer support and understanding to other women facing similar challenges. There's something powerful about women supporting each other during difficult times, Rachel observed during one of the retreats. When we share our stories and work together on creative projects, we create connections that go far beyond the lodging experience. 1 year after the inn's opening, Emily and Rachel conducted a comprehensive review of their personal and professional progress. Financially, the inn was generating consistent profits that allowed not only for its sustainability, but also for reinvestment in improvements and service expansion. Personally, both had found fulfillment and purpose that surpassed anything they had experienced before. "You know what amazes me the most?" said Emily during a walk through the gardens on the morning of the inn's 1-year anniversary. "A year ago, I was completely lost, without direction, without resources, without hope. Today I wake up every day eager to see what we're going to create or discover." Rachel agreed, reflecting on her own transformation. "I spent 15 years waiting for someone to give me permission to live fully, waiting for David to decide that I deserved public recognition, that I deserved a true commitment. Now I understand that I never needed his permission or anyone else's." The partnership between the two women had evolved beyond a practical solution to legal and financial problems. It had become a deep friendship based on mutual respect, shared values, and a common vision for the future. They had developed a rhythm of work and life that honored both their individual needs and their collective goals. Duke and Bella, now over 3 years old, had become the official mascots of the inn. Guests often mentioned in reviews how the dogs contributed to the welcoming and family-like atmosphere of the place. Bella had developed a special talent for identifying guests who were feeling sad or anxious, offering silent companionship that was often exactly what those people needed. During the 2nd year of operation, the inn began attracting attention from publications specializing in cultural tourism. A national travel magazine sent a journalist to do a story on sustainable tourism initiatives in Virginia, and the Two Hands Inn was highlighted as an exemplary model of how small businesses can contribute to cultural preservation and local economic development. The story brought national visibility to the inn, resulting in a significant increase in bookings from guests from distant states. Emily and Rachel needed to hire 2 local employees to help with cleaning and service, generating additional jobs for the community. "I never imagined our little inn could have an impact beyond our region," Rachel commented after reading the published story. "It's rewarding to see that the model we created can inspire other people to develop similar projects." The growing success of the inn allowed Emily and Rachel to expand their activities gradually and sustainably. They opened a small restaurant that served exclusively traditional Virginian cuisine dishes, prepared with local ingredients and recipes provided by families from the region. The restaurant not only offered authentic meals for guests, but also became a gathering place for the local community. The development of the restaurant brought a new dynamic to the property. During weekends, local families would come to dine and participate in informal musical events that took place in the courtyard. Musicians from the region performed voluntarily, creating live music nights that attracted both guests and local residents. "We are creating exactly the type of space I always dreamed of," Rachel said during one of these music nights, watching local children play while their parents chatted with guests from other cities. A place where different cultures meet and learn from each other. During the 3rd year of operation, the inn faced its first significant challenge when a competitor opened a similar establishment in the neighboring town, offering lower prices and aggressive promotional packages. Initially, this caused a drop in bookings that worried both Emily and Rachel. "We need to remember that our value proposition is not based solely on price," Emily said during a planning meeting. "What we offer is an authentic experience that cannot be easily replicated. Our story, our connection with the community, the quality of our relationships, these are our real differentiators." Rachel agreed, suggesting they should focus even more on the authenticity and personalization of services. Let's use this challenge as an opportunity to further improve what we already do well. Our competitor can copy our services, but they cannot copy our passion and dedication. The response to the competitive challenge revealed the maturity their partnership had achieved. Instead of panicking or attacking each other, they worked together to develop strategies that would strengthen their competitive advantages. They created specialized packages for specific niches, improved the quality of the artistic workshops, and developed partnerships with other local businesses to offer more comprehensive experiences. The measures taken to respond to the competition not only restored the original level of bookings, but actually resulted in additional growth. The guests appreciated the improvements in services, and the inn developed a base of loyal customers who returned regularly and gave enthusiastic recommendations to friends and family. One of the most rewarding aspects of the inn's growing success was the positive impact on the local community. Beyond the direct jobs they had created, several families in the region began supplying products for the restaurant: organic vegetables, artisanal dairy products, homemade sweets, traditional breads. The inn became a reliable market for local products, contributing significantly to the regional economy. Mrs. Dorothy, who had become a close friend and informal advisor, often commented on the positive changes she observed in the community. "You've brought new life to this region," she would say. "Young families are having more opportunities to stay here instead of migrating to the big cities. That is a gift for all of us." During the 4th year of operation, Emily and Rachel began receiving invitations to speak about their experience at conferences on women's entrepreneurship and sustainable tourism. They developed presentations on how to turn adversity into opportunity, how to build effective partnerships, and how to create businesses that benefit local communities. "Telling our story to other women is one of the most rewarding things we do," Emily commented after a particularly well-received conference in Philadelphia. "When we see others drawing inspiration from our experience to create their own projects, we feel our initial struggle had a greater purpose." The speaking engagements also brought networking opportunities that resulted in partnerships with organizations focused on community development and women's empowerment. The inn began hosting specialized workshops on entrepreneurship for rural women, offering training in basic business skills and support for small business development. Rachel developed a specific program to teach women in the region how to transform traditional artisanal skills into income opportunities. "Many women here know how to make beautiful things, embroidery, pottery, sweets, but never thought of it as a possible source of income," she explained. "We are helping them see the commercial value of their skills." The Women's Entrepreneurship Program became so successful that it attracted attention from governmental and non-governmental organizations interested in replicating the model in other regions. Emily and Rachel were invited as consultants on similar projects, creating an additional source of income and expanding their social impact. During the 5th year, they made the decision to physically expand the property, adding 5 additional rooms and a small convention center that could accommodate corporate retreats and family events. The expansion was financed entirely through the inn's accumulated profits, demonstrating the solid financial sustainability they had achieved. The construction of the new rooms and the convention center brought a new wave of activity to the property. Emily and Rachel insisted on maintaining the same standards of quality and authenticity they had established from the beginning, hiring the same local artisans and using sustainable materials. "Growing without losing our essence is the biggest challenge we face now," said Rachel during the expansion planning phase. "We want to offer more opportunities for our community and serve more guests, but we cannot sacrifice the personal quality of the relationships we build." Managing the expansion revealed how their partnership had matured over the years. They had developed effective ways to make joint decisions, resolve minor conflicts, and support each other during stressful periods. Their communication had become intuitive, based on deep trust and mutual understanding. Duke and Bella, now older dogs, adapted to the changes on the property with the wisdom that comes with age. They had become local legends, often mentioned in online reviews as the most affectionate 4-legged hosts in Virginia. Their presence continued to be a distinctive element of the inn's experience. During the inauguration of the new spaces, Emily and Rachel organized a celebration that brought together everyone who had been part of their journey over the 5 years. Guests who had become friends, artisans who supplied products, staff who helped with daily operations, neighbors who offered constant support, and the family of the 2 women who had overcome their initial discomfort to embrace their unlikely partnership. Looking at all these people gathered here, I realize we have built much more than a business, said Emily during her speech at the celebration. We have built an extended family, a community of people who support each other and share common values about hospitality, authenticity, and mutual care. Rachel added her own reflections on the journey they had shared. 5 years ago, both of us were lost, hurt, feeling like our lives had been destroyed by lies and manipulation. Today, we are here celebrating the life we built together, based on truth, transparency, and mutual support. If that isn't proof that it's always possible to start over, I don't know what is. The celebration lasted late into the night, with live music, traditional food prepared collectively, and stories shared by people whose lives had been touched by the inn and the partnership between the 2 women. It was a night that crystallized the meaning of everything they had built together. At the end of the 5th year of operation, Emily and Rachel conducted a comprehensive review of their goals for the future. The inn was financially solid, operationally efficient, and socially impactful. They had achieved personal and professional economic stability, developed a deep and meaningful friendship, and created a legacy that would benefit the local community for many years. "What is the next chapter of our story?" asked Rachel during a walk through the mature gardens that now framed the expanded property. Emily smiled, looking at the spaces they had created together and the people who kept coming to be part of their community. "I think the next chapter is about sharing what we've learned even more widely. Maybe it's time to write a book about our experience, or create a mentorship program for other women who want to start unlikely business partnerships." The idea of documenting and sharing their story more comprehensively planted the seed for the next phase of their partnership's evolution. They began considering how they could use their experiences and successes to inspire and support others facing similar challenges. During the 6th year, in addition to continuing to operate the inn with growing success, Emily and Rachel began a collaborative book project about their journey. The process of writing about their experiences brought a new dimension of reflection and self-awareness to both of them. They realized how much they had grown and changed over the years, not just as business partners, but as individuals. "Writing about our story makes me realize how much we lose when we allow other people to define our worth and our possibilities," Rachel observed during one of their writing sessions. "David kept us small in different ways, you through artificial scarcity, me through constant expectation. But we both came out of that experience bigger and stronger." The book, titled 2 Hands, 1 Story, How Betrayal Turned into Partnership, was published in the inn's 7th year of operation. Sales exceeded all expectations, and the book became a reference for women facing difficult life transitions. The book royalties were invested in a fund offering microcredit to women entrepreneurs in the region. The book's publication brought even more visibility to the inn and their story, resulting in invitations for radio and television interviews, articles in national magazines, and even interest from producers looking to adapt their story into a documentary. "Sometimes I have to pinch myself to believe all this started with finding a hidden letter in a cracked wall," Emily said during one of the interviews. "If someone had told me 7 years ago that I would be here today, happy, fulfilled, with a business partner who became my best friend, I would have thought it impossible." The documentary was produced in the 8th year, bringing a film crew to the inn for several weeks. The process of visually documenting their stories and revisiting the places where it all began was emotionally intense, but also deeply rewarding. The documentary premiered at film festivals and was later broadcast on television channels specializing in inspirational stories. During the documentary's production, they revisited the secret office Emily had discovered at the back of the property. The space had been transformed into a historical archive for the inn, storing photographs, documents, and mementos from all the guests and events that had marked their journey. Funny how this place that represented secrets and lies became a repository of happy memories and genuine achievements, Rachel noted, flipping through photo albums of smiling guests and community events. Duke and Bella, now elderly but still active and affectionate dogs, appeared extensively in the documentary as symbols of the continuity and stability that had characterized the property's transformation. Their constant presence over the years had been a source of comfort and joy for countless guests, and their distinct personalities had become part of the inn's identity. In the 9th year of operation, the Two Hands Inn received official recognition as a cultural heritage site of the city of Williamsburg, an honor that reflected its role in preserving and promoting local traditions. The recognition ceremony was held at the inn itself, attended by local officials, representatives from cultural organizations, and all the community members who had contributed to the project's success. "This recognition isn't just ours," Emily said during the ceremony. "It belongs to everyone who believed in our vision and helped make it a reality. It belongs to the artisans who shared their knowledge, the suppliers who supported us from the beginning, the guests who became ambassadors of our story, and especially to the local community that welcomed us and allowed us to be part of something greater." The official recognition brought practical benefits, including government support for the maintenance of the historic property and inclusion in the region's official tourist itineraries. But more important than the practical benefits was the validation that they had truly created something meaningful and lasting. During the 10th year, they decided to establish a non-profit foundation dedicated to supporting women through difficult life transitions. The Two Hands Foundation would offer scholarships for women to participate in the inn's retreats, entrepreneurship training programs, and a mutual support network for women facing divorce, widowhood, or other significant changes. The foundation became the most rewarding project they had undertaken together. They saw women arrive emotionally broken and leave with renewed confidence and concrete plans to rebuild their lives. Many of these women kept in touch over the years, sharing achievements and challenges, creating a genuine support network that extended far beyond the initial experience at the inn. "The foundation is our way of ensuring that other women have the opportunities we created for ourselves," explained Rachel during a foundation board meeting. "Not everyone is lucky enough to find a partner like I found in Emily, but everyone deserves support and resources to rebuild their lives after difficult periods." Duke and Bella, now over 10 years old, began to show signs of advanced age. They moved more slowly, slept more, and needed more frequent medical care. Emily and Rachel cared for them with the same dedication they had shown to every aspect of the inn, ensuring their final years were comfortable and surrounded by love. The aging presence of the dogs brought a melancholic but deeply touching dimension to the inn's atmosphere. Guests often commented on the dignity and serenity of the elderly animals, seeing in them a metaphor for graceful aging and acceptance of life's natural changes. During the 11th year, Bella passed away peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by the family that had loved her for over a decade. Her passing brought deep sadness, but also gratitude for the joy she had brought to countless people over the years. They organized a small ceremony in her memory in the garden she loved so much, planting a fruit tree that would offer shade and food for future generations. Duke, demonstrating the wisdom that comes with age and the experience of loss, continued to be a gentle and welcoming companion for guests, though his pace was noticeably calmer. He seemed to understand that his mission was to offer comfort, especially to people going through difficult times, instinctively positioning himself near guests who seemed to need quiet company. In the 12th year, the Two Hands Inn had become a national reference for sustainable cultural tourism and women's empowerment. Delegations from other countries visited regularly to study the model Emily and Rachel had created, interested in replicating aspects of their approach in different contexts. "It's surreal to think that our little inn in Williamsburg has become a model studied internationally," commented Emily during one of the international delegation visits, "but it is also rewarding to know that our story can inspire similar projects in completely different places." The international visits brought global perspectives that further enriched the two women's vision of hospitality and community development. They incorporated ideas and practices from other cultures, always adapting them to fit their core values of authenticity and respect for local traditions. During the 13th year, they began to consider issues of succession and legacy. Although both were still relatively young and at the peak of their productive capacity, They wanted to ensure that the inn and the foundation would continue operating according to their principles, even when they were no longer directly involved. They decided to establish a governance board that included members of the local community, former guests who had become close friends, and representatives from partner organizations. The board would be responsible for upholding the values and mission of the inn and the foundation, ensuring continuity regardless of Emily and Rachel's participation. We want our work to continue positively impacting people's lives long after we are no longer here to oversee it directly, explained Rachel during a planning meeting. The best measure of our success will be our creation's ability to survive and grow independently of us. Duke passed away in the 14th year, at 12 years old, also peacefully and surrounded by love. His passing marked the end of an era, as he had witnessed the entire transformation of the property from the early days when Emily arrived with just 2 suitcases and 2 dogs. His memory was honored with the creation of a small memorial in the garden where he used to rest, overseeing the inn's activities. The passing of Duke and Bella was deeply felt by the entire inn community, but it also served as a reminder of the importance of celebrating and valuing every moment. Emily and Rachel decided not to acquire new dogs immediately, allowing time to properly honor the memory of their journey companions. In the 15th year of the inn's operation, Emily and Rachel organized a special celebration that brought together people from all phases of their journey. Guests from the early years returned specifically for the event. Artisans who had taught workshops brought their families, current and former staff gathered to celebrate, and the local community attended in full force to honor 2 women who had become pillars of their region. 15 years ago I was lost, directionless, thinking my life had ended at 28, said Emily during her speech at the celebration. Today, at 43, I can say my life truly began when I discovered that first letter in the cracked wall. Sometimes the greatest tragedies are portals to the greatest joys. Rachel, now 55, reflected on her own transformation during the celebration. I spent 15 years waiting for someone to give me permission to be happy. The last 15 years have taught me that the only permission I needed was my own, and that when women support each other, they can create miracles. The 15th anniversary celebration was documented by journalists and photographers, resulting in articles in several publications that told the complete story of the 2 women's and the property's transformation. The stories inspired even more women to seek out the inn and the foundation, continually expanding the circle of people benefited by their experience. During the 16th year, they made a significant donation to establish a center for studies on women's entrepreneurship at the University of Savannah. The center would conduct academic research on alternative business models, female partnerships, and sustainable economic development, ensuring that their experiences contributed to formal knowledge on these topics. We want our story to be more than just an inspiring anecdote, explained Emily during the center's inauguration ceremony. We want it to become a foundation for serious research that can help other women and other communities develop similar solutions for their own challenges. The study center became a hub for researchers interested in gender and economic development issues, attracting academics from various American and international universities. The studies conducted at the center contributed to more effective public policies supporting female entrepreneurship at a national level. In the 17th year, Emily and Rachel received the news that they had been selected to receive a national award for excellence in sustainable tourism, recognizing not only the inn's commercial success, but primarily its positive social impact on the local community and its contribution to cultural preservation. The award ceremony in Washington, D.C., was a moment of deep emotion and reflection for both. They were being recognized by the federal government for a journey that had begun with pain, betrayal, and confusion, but had transformed into a story of hope, partnership, and fulfillment. This award represents all the women who refused to accept that their lives were over when they faced betrayals or losses, said Rachel during the acceptance speech. It represents all the communities that come together to support projects that benefit everyone. It represents proof that it is always possible to start over, no matter how impossible the situation may seem. The national recognition brought opportunities to further expand the impact of their work. They were invited as consultants for government rural development projects to participate in public policy commissions for women and to collaborate with international organizations interested in replicating their model in other countries. During the 18th year, they initiated a pilot project to establish a second inn in Savannah, using one of the apartments David had left as a base to create an adapted version of their original model. The project would be managed by 2 local women who would receive ongoing training and support from Emily and Rachel. "Our goal is not to build a commercial empire," clarified Emily during the project announcement. "We want to prove that our model can be replicated and adapted by other people in different contexts, while maintaining the core values of authenticity, sustainability, and female empowerment." The pilot project in Savannah became a laboratory for testing ways to transfer knowledge and best practices while maintaining the autonomy and creativity of the new managers. The project's success validated the replicability of their model and paved the way for future expansions. In the 19th year, the original inn in Williamsburg had become a pilgrimage destination for women from across the United States and from other countries interested in stories of overcoming and transformation. Reservations needed to be made months in advance, and they maintained a waiting list to accommodate the growing demand. To meet the demand without compromising the quality of the experience, they developed a rotation system that included different types of retreats throughout the year: retreats for women in transition, intensive craft workshops, programs for mothers and daughters, and even special retreats for female entrepreneurs interested in forming business partnerships. "Every group we host brings different energy and perspectives," observed Rachel. 20 years ago, I thought my life was about waiting for other people to give me what I needed. Now I realize my life is about offering other people what I discovered I had all along." During the 20th year of the inn's operation, Emily and Rachel organized a celebration that lasted an entire week, with different events for different groups of people who had been part of their journey. There was an evening for guests who had become friends, another for local artisans and suppliers, a special celebration for women who had participated in the retreats over the years, and a final party open to the entire community. 20 years is just the beginning," Emily said during the closing speech of the celebration week. "We've proven it's possible to transform pain into purpose, betrayal into partnership, isolation into community. Now our responsibility is to ensure these lessons continue to benefit others long after we are no longer here to tell them." The 20th anniversary celebration also marked the launch of a second, updated edition of their book, including reflections on the 2 decades of experience and academic studies based on their model. The updated book became required reading in management and social development courses at several universities. Looking to the future, Emily and Rachel knew they had created something that transcended their personal experiences. The 2 Hands Inn had become a symbol of hope and possibility for people facing difficult transitions, and its story would continue to inspire others for many generations. "What began as the worst betrayal of our lives turned into the greatest blessing," Rachel reflected on a quiet afternoon, watching guests participate in a pottery workshop in the garden where Duke and Bella used to play. "We've proven that even when everything seems lost, there is always a way to start over and create something beautiful." In the 21st year of operation, an unexpected situation would once again test the strength of the partnership between Emily and Rachel. Mrs. Dorothy's youngest daughter, Jessica, who had grown up watching the inn's success, returned from New York after a difficult divorce, bringing with her 2 young daughters and a story that echoed in a disturbing way the experiences Emily and Rachel had lived through decades before. Jessica had discovered that her ex-husband had maintained a second family for 5 years, using the same pattern of lies and financial manipulation that David had employed. The difference was that Jessica had 2 dependent children and few resources of her own, making her situation even more vulnerable than Emily's had been at the start. "Mrs. Emily, Mrs. Rachel, my mother always told me about how you managed to rebuild your lives after going through something similar," Jessica said during a visit to the inn, with tears in her eyes. "I don't know what to do anymore. He kept the house, the car, everything. He said I wouldn't be able to prove anything because he was too clever at hiding the assets. Jessica's story brought back painful memories, but it also reinforced how much Emily and Rachel had grown and strengthened over the years. They looked at each other and knew immediately they needed to help this young mother the same way they had managed to help each other 2 decades before. "Jessica, first you need to understand you are not alone," Emily said in a firm but caring voice. "Second, you need to know that everything may seem impossible now, but there is always a way to start over. We are living proof of that." Rachel offered to accommodate Jessica and her daughters in one of the inn's suites temporarily while they helped the young woman sort out her legal and financial situation. Dr. Robert Harrison, who was now 70 years old but still active in special cases, agreed to help Jessica pro bono, motivated by the success story he had witnessed with Emily and Rachel. Jessica's daughters, 8-year-old Madison and 5-year-old Olivia, brought a childlike energy to the inn that had been absent since Duke and Bella left. The children were enchanted by the property's environment, especially the gardens where they could play freely, while their mothers handled the legal aspects of their situation. "Mommy, can I live here forever?" asked Madison after a week at the inn. "Here, people are happy and help each other. At our old house, you were always sad, and Daddy was always angry." Madison's innocent observation deeply touched all the women involved in the situation. Jessica realized how her daughters had been affected by the constant tension at home, while Emily and Rachel remembered how the atmosphere of lies and manipulation had affected their own lives, even when they weren't consciously aware of it. During the weeks Jessica spent at the inn with her daughters, she began to participate in the property's daily activities. It turned out she had a natural talent for event organization and a personality that charmed the guests. Gradually, she began to take on informal responsibilities that lightened Emily and Rachel's workload. "Jessica has something special," Rachel commented to Emily, after observing how efficiently the young woman had coordinated an event for a group of 15 guests. "She has energy, creativity, and an ability to connect with people that would perfectly complement our team." The legal investigation into Jessica's situation revealed that her ex-husband had made mistakes similar to David's, transferring assets without the wife's consent, creating fictitious companies and even fraudulent loans. Dr. Robert managed to identify several irregularities that could be used to recover a significant portion of the assets that had been diverted. "The pattern is always the same," observed Dr. Robert during a meeting with all the women. "These men think they're smarter than they really are. They make the same legal mistakes because they underestimate the women they are manipulating and don't imagine they could organize to fight back." During the legal process, which lasted almost a year, Jessica naturally settled into the inn's team. She developed specializations in coordinating family events and special programs for mothers with children, areas that Emily and Rachel hadn't fully explored before. Her presence brought a younger generation's perspective that enriched the inn's activity offerings. Madison and Olivia integrated perfectly into the life of the property. They helped with small, age-appropriate tasks like watering plants or organizing materials for workshops, always supervised by adults. Their presence brought joy to many guests, especially older women who missed being around children. "Seeing these girls growing up here reminds me of the importance of what we do," Emily said one afternoon, watching Madison teaching Olivia how to make a small ceramic pot. "We're not just building a business or helping women individually. We're creating an environment where a new generation can grow up understanding values of cooperation, authenticity, and mutual support." Jessica's legal case was resolved more favorably than anyone had dared to hope. Dr. Robert managed to prove substantial fraud and recover not only an equitable division of marital assets, but also additional compensation for damages caused. Jessica found herself in a stable financial situation for the first time in years. "Now you have options," said Rachel, when the final legal results were announced. "You can use that money to restart your life anywhere you choose. You can return to New York, you can stay here in Williamsburg, you can even travel the world with your daughters." Jessica smiled, looking around the inn that had become her home for over a year. "I've already chosen where I want to restart my life. I want to stay here, if you'll accept me as a partner. I want my daughters to grow up in this environment, and I want to help continue supporting other women the way you helped me." Jessica's proposal to become a partner in the inn opened a new phase in the evolution of the business. Emily and Rachel, now in their 50s, had begun thinking about succession and continuity. Bringing Jessica in as a younger partner would ensure renewed energy and fresh perspectives for the inn's next decades. After careful discussions and legal consultations, they structured a new partnership that included Jessica as a minority partner, with the possibility of increasing her stake over the years as her contributions and investments grew. The agreement also included provisions for Madison and Olivia to inherit their mother's share when they reached adulthood, if they chose to remain involved with the inn. Jessica's integration brought positive changes to the inn's operation. She developed special programs for families, created activity packages for different age groups, and introduced modern technologies that improved operational efficiency without compromising the artisanal charm that characterized the experience. "It's interesting how a younger perspective can complement our experience," observed Emily. "Jessica sees opportunities and solutions we wouldn't consider, but always respecting the core values we've built over the years." During the 23rd year, the inn faced its biggest challenge yet, when a global pandemic forced the temporary closure of all tourism activities. For months, they couldn't receive guests, and revenues dropped practically to zero. Many similar businesses in the region went bankrupt during this period, but the diversification of activities they had developed over the years and the financial reserves they maintained allowed them not only to survive the difficult period, but also to support other local businesses facing greater hardships. They used the closure period for extensive renovations and the development of new programs. "Crises reveal an organization's true strength," said Rachel during a planning meeting in the middle of the pandemic. "We discovered we're not just a tourism business. We are truly a community that supports each other during difficult times." During the closure months, they developed online programs that allowed them to stay in touch with their network of women and offer virtual support during a period when many people were facing isolation and financial difficulties. The artisan workshops were adapted to a virtual format, and they began regular emotional support sessions via video conference. When the inn could reopen, pent-up demand resulted in bookings stretching over a year. People were eager for authentic experiences and genuine human connections after months of isolation. The inn offered exactly the type of welcoming and comforting environment many were seeking. "The pandemic taught us that our value proposition goes far beyond lodging and activities," reflected Jessica. "We offer a sense of community and belonging that people have discovered is fundamental to their well-being." During the 24th year, they began an ambitious project to systematically document all the transformation stories they had witnessed over the years. Hundreds of women had passed through the inn's retreats and programs, each carrying a unique story of overcoming and growth. They wanted to preserve these stories as inspiration for future generations. The documentation project resulted in a series of books, podcasts, and a digital archive that became a valuable library of human experiences about resilience and renewal. Universities began using the material in courses on positive psychology, personal development, and gender studies. Madison and Olivia, now teenagers, became actively involved in the documentation project, interviewing older women and learning about different ways of facing adversity. The project became a valuable educational experience that connected them deeply with the inn's mission. "It's amazing to hear these stories and realize there isn't just one way to be strong," commented Madison, now 15, after interviewing a lady who had started her life over at 65. "Every woman finds her own way to be brave." In the inn's 25th year, they organized a special celebration that lasted an entire month, with themed events representing each phase of their journey. The celebration attracted international attention, with journalists and documentary filmmakers from various countries coming to record the story of 3 women who had transformed a personal betrayal into a lastingly successful social enterprise. 25 years is a milestone few family businesses reach, said Emily during the celebration's opening event. But more important than longevity is the impact. We know thousands of lives have been positively touched by the work we've developed here. That is a legacy no money can buy. During the celebration, they announced the creation of an international institute dedicated to replicating their model in other countries. The institute would offer training, consulting, and financial resources for women interested in creating similar social enterprises in their own communities. Our story began locally and personally, but we've discovered the principles that worked for us can benefit people in completely different contexts, explained Rachel. We want our experience to become a platform for positive change on a global scale. The International Institute quickly attracted interest from organizations in North America, the Caribbean, and South America, where groups of women were facing challenges similar to those Emily and Rachel had overcome. The first pilot projects were established in Canada, Mexico, and Central America, each adapting the American model to their specific cultural realities. During the 26th year, Jessica took on more operational responsibilities, allowing Emily and Rachel to focus on developing the International Institute and mentorship projects for the next generation of social entrepreneurs. The transition of responsibilities happened naturally, reflecting the maturity of the partnership among the three women. Madison, now 17, expressed interest in studying social administration with a focus on women's entrepreneurship. She planned to spend a few years studying abroad, but with the stated intention of returning to contribute to the expansion of the Inn's work. Olivia, 14, showed artistic talent that echoed Rachel's skills, but also an interest in technology that could further modernize operations. It's moving to see how the next generation is preparing to continue the work we started, observed Rachel. They're growing up with values of collaboration and social purpose that have become second nature to them. In the 27th year, the Inn received international recognition when it was selected by the United Nations as an example of best practice in sustainable development and women's empowerment. The recognition brought global visibility and additional resources to expand the impact of their work. The recognition ceremony at the UN headquarters in New York was a moment of deep emotion for the three women. They were representing not only their own success, but also the potential for transformation that exists when women support each other and work together to create positive change. When I discovered that first letter hidden in my kitchen wall, I could never have imagined it would lead us here, said Emily during her speech at the UN. We've proven that there is no tragedy so great that it cannot be transformed into an opportunity to serve something greater than ourselves. The international recognition resulted in invitations for partnerships with governments and international organizations interested in implementing programs based on the two-hands-in model. They became consultants for rural development and women's empowerment initiatives across several continents. During the 28th year, they established a social investment fund that offered working capital and mentorship to women interested in creating social businesses. The fund was capitalized through the Inn's profits, book royalties, and donations from people who had been inspired by their story. We've reached a point where our individual success allows us to create systematic opportunities for others, explained Jessica during the fund's launch. It's no longer about helping one woman at a time, but about creating structures that can support hundreds of women simultaneously. The Social Investment Fund became an innovative model that combined financial capital with emotional and educational support. Each woman who benefited received not only money, but also access to a network of mentors, training programs, and ongoing follow-up to ensure the success of their ventures. In the 29th year, Madison graduated from high school and was accepted into a prestigious university in the United Kingdom to study social administration. Her departure was emotional, but also proud, representing the achievement of one of the extended family's long-term goals, to provide the next generation with educational opportunities that would prepare them to lead positive change in the world. Madison carries with her not only our formal education, but also the values she absorbed growing up here, said Jessica during her daughter's farewell party. She viscerally understands the power of female cooperation and the impact small actions can have when sustained by genuine purpose. During her absence for studies, Madison kept in constant contact with the Inn, writing articles for the company blog about her academic experiences and how the concepts she was learning related to the work her family was doing. Her articles became popular among readers interested in the intersection between academic theory and social practice. The inn's 30th year was marked by a celebration that lasted 3 months, recognizing not only 3 decades of operation, but also the cumulative impact their work had had on thousands of lives. During the celebration, they launched a photographic retrospective that visually documented the transformation of the property and the people who had passed through it. 30 years is an entire generation, reflected Rachel during the main event of the celebration. We've seen girls become women, women transform into leaders, and entire communities change for the better. Our work has completely transcended our original personal experiences. The 30th anniversary celebration included the announcement that the original property would be donated to a foundation that would ensure its perpetual preservation as a center for social development. Emily, Rachel, and Jessica would maintain lifetime operation, but the property would be protected against future changes that could compromise its social mission. We want to ensure this place continues its mission long after we are no longer here to run it, explained Emily. The property now belongs to all the women who have benefited from its existence and to all who will benefit in the future. During the 31st year, Olivia graduated from high school and decided to study visual arts with a specialization in art therapy. Her choice reflected Rachel's influence, but also her own vision of how creativity could be used as a tool for healing and personal transformation. Olivia has a special sensitivity for identifying when people are going through difficult times, observed Rachel. She has developed an intuition for how art can be used to aid the emotional healing process. She will be a valuable addition to our team when she returns from her studies. With both of Jessica's daughters pursuing their own educational paths but maintaining a connection to the inn's mission, Emily, Rachel, and Jessica began planning the next phase of their organization's evolution. They had proven it was possible to create sustainable and impactful social enterprises. Now they wanted to focus on ensuring that knowledge was systematically passed on to future generations. In the 32nd year, they established a corporate university offering formal training programs in social entrepreneurship, women's leadership, and community development. The university attracted students from various countries interested in learning practical methodologies for creating positive social change. Our knowledge was acquired through experience and trial and error over decades, said Jessica during the corporate university's inauguration. Now we can offer this knowledge in a structured way, allowing others to learn in months what took us years to discover. The corporate university became an internationally recognized center of excellence, attracting not only students, but also researchers interested in studying alternative models of economic development. The programs offered combined rigorous academic theory with intensive practical experience. During the 33rd year, Madison returned from her studies in the United States, bringing a global perspective and new ideas on how to further expand the impact of their work. She had completed internships at international organizations and was ready to take on leadership responsibilities in the organization's next phase. Studying abroad made me realize how unique and valuable our approach here in Williamsburg is, said Madison during her first meeting after returning. But it also showed me enormous opportunities to apply our methods on a much larger scale, using technologies and partnerships that didn't exist when you all started. Madison brought proposals to digitize many of the inn's programs, creating online platforms that could reach women in remote regions where establishing physical centers wasn't possible. She also suggested partnerships with technology companies interested in supporting social impact initiatives. In the 34th year, Olivia returned from her art studies and immediately implemented art therapy programs that became extremely popular among guests dealing with trauma and difficult transitions. Her approach combined traditional artistic techniques with modern therapeutic methods, creating healing experiences that were both effective and deeply rewarding. Olivia brought a therapeutic dimension to our work that always existed informally, but can now be offered professionally and systematically, noted Rachel. Seeing how she developed her own approach based on what she learned here, but expanding far beyond it, is one of the greatest satisfactions of my life. With Madison focusing on technological and international expansion, and Olivia developing the therapeutic aspects of the programs, the Inn entered a new era of innovation and growth. The younger generation was honoring the core values established by their mothers, its mentors, while introducing modern approaches that multiplied the impact of the work. During the 35th year, the organization had evolved into a complex of social enterprises that included the original IN, the International Institute, the Corporate University, the Social Investment Fund, and a series of specialized programs. Together, these initiatives employed more than 200 people and directly impacted thousands of lives annually. When I look at all this, I sometimes have trouble believing it started with a letter hidden in a cracked wall, said Emily during a strategic planning meeting. But then I remember that every great transformation begins with someone having the courage to investigate what is hidden and face difficult truths. The growing complexity of the organization required more sophisticated governance structures. They established a board of directors that included representatives from all the communities benefited by their work, ensuring that the voices of the end users continued to influence strategic decisions. In the 36th year, they received one of the greatest possible recognitions when they were invited to present their story at the opening ceremony of an international congress on sustainable development, speaking to an audience of over 5,000 world leaders. "Our message is simple but powerful," said Rachel during the presentation. "When women support each other and work together with clear purpose, they can transform not only their own lives, but also the communities around them. There is no problem so big that it cannot be faced through genuine collaboration and sustained determination." The presentation was broadcast globally and seen by millions of people, inspiring hundreds of new projects based on the model they had developed. The multiplier effect of their story had reached a scale they could never have imagined when they began. During the 37th year, they established a formal succession program that would ensure the continuity of their work for many future decades. Madison was officially appointed as the executive director of the organization, while Olivia took over the direction of the therapeutic and artistic programs. Passing the leadership to the next generation is not an end, but a transformation, explained Jessica during the transition ceremony. "The three of us will remain involved as mentors and advisors, but now Madison and Olivia have the energy and vision needed to take our work to the next level." The leadership transition marked the beginning of a new era for the organization, with the younger generation bringing fresh perspectives and innovative approaches that respected the core values while significantly expanding the reach and impact of the work. In the 38th year, under the leadership of Madison and Olivia, the organization launched a global initiative that established centers based on the two hands-in model in 15 countries. Each center was adapted to local cultural realities, but maintained the core principles of women's empowerment, community development, and sustainability. "It's thrilling to see how our local story has become a global movement," reflected Rachel, now over 70 years old, but still active as a mentor and advisor. "We've proven that small actions sustained by solid values can have a planetary impact." During the 39th year, the organization was recognized by the UN as one of the 5 most effective initiatives in the world at promoting the Sustainable Development Goals related to gender equality and poverty reduction. The recognition brought significant additional resources that allowed the work to expand even further. Emily, now 66, remained active but had focused primarily on mentorship and writing. She was working on an autobiography that would document not only the history of the Inn, but also her reflections on resilience, forgiveness, and the transformative power of female collaboration. "Writing about our journey makes me realize how every difficult moment we faced became an opportunity for growth," she said. "I wouldn't change anything we went through, because every challenge strengthened us and prepared us to help other people more effectively." In the 40th year of the Inn's operation, they organized a celebration that lasted 6 months, recognizing 4 decades of transformative impact. The celebration included international conferences, art exhibitions, book and documentary launches, and community events that brought together thousands of people whose lives had been touched by the organization's work. 40 years is more than an entire professional lifetime, said Madison during the celebration's main event. It's long enough to prove that it's possible to create lasting change when you have a clear purpose, solid partnerships, and an unshakable commitment to serving something greater than ourselves. The 40th year celebration also marked the launch of a 100 million real endowment fund that would guarantee the organization's perpetual funding. The fund was capitalized through contributions from governments, international organizations, and thousands of individuals who had been inspired by the story of the three women. Looking back on 4 decades of work, Emily, Rachel, and Jessica knew they had created something far greater than any of them could have imagined when they started. What began as a personal response to betrayal and abandonment had transformed into a global movement that would continue impacting lives for many future generations. The greatest lesson we learned is that there is no situation so desperate that it cannot be turned into an opportunity to serve, reflected Emily during one of the final interviews of the 40th year celebration. When we stop seeing ourselves as victims and start seeing ourselves as agents of change, we discover powers we never knew we possessed. The three women remained involved with the organization in advisory capacities, but now had the satisfaction of seeing their legacy firmly established and in capable hands. Madison and Olivia had fully assumed operational leadership, bringing energy and vision that would ensure the continuity and expansion of the work for many future decades. The story that had begun with a young widow finding a hidden letter in a cracked wall had transformed into a saga of transformation that proved the power of human resilience, female collaboration, and the determination to create meaning from suffering. It was a story that would continue to inspire people for many generations, proving that it is always possible to start over, no matter how impossible the situation may seem. End of story. And so, dear listener, what did you think of this story of new beginnings and overcoming adversity? Emily and Rachel managed to turn a situation of pain and betrayal into an opportunity for growth and partnership that lasted decades. Tell us in the comments, do you believe they made the right choice in deciding to work together? Leave your like if the story touched your heart, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one.